Okay, so now we'll be doing the advanced design part of our Figma workshop. So last time in our basic design, we stopped here, and now we'll be going through some of the advanced concepts like components and other things that you can use in Figma to work faster. So one of the first concepts that we need is auto layout. So auto layout is used to automatically organize elements with certain padding and margin. So this can be done using the attribute panel again. And the prerequisite for auto layout is all of them should be in either in a group or you should be selecting multiple items at once. So for example, you want to auto layout this button. You can select the button and click on this auto layout on the right side. So there's this plus icon. You can add auto layout by clicking on that. And you can see it's aligned with the follow button exactly at the center of this rectangle. So this was a group which had that rectangle and that text, and right now it's a frame, or it's like an auto laid out frame that has follow at the exact center, where this is the horizontal gap, this is the horizontal padding, and this is the vertical padding, and it's at the center. It's aligned in the center, so I can make it align top, bottom, center, right, left, however it is. I put it in the center. Okay, so this part is to change the padding if you want to, and there's handles here also to change the padding. So that's how you can add auto layout and make your items aligned exactly how you want using these settings. So I'm going to do that for this message button too. Then for this. So I can do that everywhere. For this one also, I'm going to add an auto layout. And you can see everything is equally distant right now. And it's laid out on the top left instead of the center like the rest. So we don't want something like this. We want it to be top left or center left, where everything is on the left side at the same line. So you can do all of that for all our items here. And let me also demonstrate how auto layout would work for this image gallery. Let's say in this image gallery, the rectangles or the squares were not properly arranged. You just put something like this. You can do that. You can mess it up yourself too. And now you want it to be auto laid out something with something like this, where it's all inside one frame and there's an equal padding between these items. So how do we do that? We already have all our items inside one group, so we can use auto layout now. And for that, go to auto layout and select add an auto layout using the plus button. And you can see everything is aligned and everything is wrapping. So that means after 3 items, since there's no space, it's going to the next line. And the gap between them is -6. I want it to be -6. Let's put something like 10. So now the gap is 10. And you can see it's going to the next line. That is because there's no space over here for it to be 3 items. So I can pull it here, and now there's 3 items here. So the vertical padding also, I can make it 10. You can see now there's padding. And if I want on the top, on the left also, I can add padding. So what's it like this? I added left padding, I can add top padding. So that's just to demonstrate how it would work. And let's say instead of wrapping like this, you want it to be all in one straight line, which is either horizontal or vertical, then you can use these options. So for horizontal layout, everything will be in this line. Vertical layout, everything is in this line. What I want now for this particular image gallery is wrap, where there's no padding. And for the gap, it should be 1. And I'm going to place it here, and this one should be here. So it's the exact size of the screen, where padding is 1, gap is 0. And I can do a right top left align. So in this, I have 12 screens, and they're all inside aligned like this. Okay, so that's one thing that you can use to align everything. Let's also do that on the footer here. So let's see if this works. On the auto layout, I click on the plus, and you can see everything is aligned in the center. So previously it was not aligned. Maybe if I move it on the top, it's not aligned. And now everything's in the center and everything's in a straight line and equally distant as well. So that's a way to auto arrange, set direction, padding, and gap so that all your items are laid out in a proper way with equal padding and margin as you want it, but also in an organized manner. So you can try out auto layout and see how it can improve your workflow. And the next thing to improve your workflow is components. So components are reusable objects, and as a general rule, they are supposed to be used when certain element appears multiple times in your design. And one example of that is a button. A button is going to be there so many places in your design. So maybe you want to create a component of a button and then use that component button everywhere. And why is this useful? Let's take a look. So when creating components, you need to understand the concept of master component and instance component. So master component are the main definition of the component, and this is where you define, this is how my button needs to look. And if you use a copy of this button somewhere else, and if you make a change in this button, the same changes will be synced across the other buttons. So that is why you need a master component. So when you use an instance component, all of the instance component is when you copy and use somewhere else, all of the changes will be synced. So let's try doing this by creating a master component for our button. So to create our master component, the first thing you do is you create components outside your screen. It's not within your screen. Please go outside and create a button here. But if you don't want to create a button from scratch, what you can do is just pull out your previous button. Okay, so this is my button from before. The button is this auto laid out item with which has the follow text centered inside of it. And I want to make a component out of this. So after you've pulled out your follow button outside of your screen, please don't do this inside your screen, move it outside of your screen and create a component out of it. So you can either use this or you can right click, create component. You can see there's this diamond icon where there are 4 different diamonds laid out together. So it's 4 solid diamonds laid out together. And this signifies a master component. So this master component you can use in your designs and it'll be synced. So what we have created right now is this master component. And we need an instance component, so a duplicate of that component inside our design. So what we'll do here is select that master component, Control C, okay, copy it, select the master component, Control C, Command C, and then go back to your design, select your design's frame, and then Command V. So you can see a follow button has been added and you can align it how you want. And now take a look at the layers panel. So the instance component that you copied and pasted inside this has a hollow diamond, but the one outside has a filled solid diamond with 4. So this is the master and this is the instance. And now let's take a look at why this is useful. So let's say your company or Instagram decides to change all of its buttons or the primary button color to be green instead of blue. So instead of going to every screen and changing all of the blues to greens, it can use these components. And now when I change the master component's color to something else like green, the instance component is also going to change. So this is green, this is also green. This is red, it's also red. If I go back to blue, again, this becomes blue. So that's how changes are synced, and that's the reason we use components in large designs so that it's easier for you to make changes in the long run, because your design is not going to be stationary, it's going to change based on user feedback. So that's one way to make life easier as a designer. Now let's also look at overrides. So let's say you have a button like this, And there's just one place where you want that button to be another color, but everywhere else you want it to be blue. So what you can do is select your instance button and change the color to be anything you want. So previously when we were changing this into green, this was also changing. But when we select this one and change green, only this one will change and not this one. So instance components will not reflect back to the master, but master will reflect back to the instance. Okay, so now this is detached from this, and everything is similar except the color. But in case you want to go back to be the same one again, then you can reset all changes and it's going to be copying this one again. Okay, so the next thing we are going to look at is component variants. So component variants are used to organize components that have very slight differences. For example, one place that I like to use it is for hover or clicking interactions. Now, in our Figma design, let's say you have a follow button and you want it to have another style when you are hovering on it. So I know this is a mobile app prototype, but then we are going to try hover interaction. Hover is not available on mobile, but this is pretty easy to try out, so we're going to try out that. Okay, so follow along and let's see how we can model a hovering interaction using Figma component variants. So this is our follow button. It's a component. You can see it's a component. Now I want to add a component variant. So right click, main component, add variant. So again, right click the component, main component, add variant. Now you can see there's this dotted purple box around our component, and this is our default component. You can see default filled diamond, and there's this variant 2, which is the second variant that we have, and this is what you're going to make our variant when you're hovering on it. So let's do that by changing the attributes of it. So when you hover over a button, the color will change slightly. So let's do that. Let's make it a lighter blue. Okay, a very lighter blue. I'm also going to remove the shadow. So you can make any changes you want and change it to be different from this one when you're hovering. So the main thing that you want is to be a lighter color, especially when this is a darker color. So you have another variant that we want it to be when hovering. So how do we actually make this change into this when hovering? We can do that by creating interactions. So to do this, we'll have to see the right panel that we have, and we were always on this design panel. Now we're going to go to the prototype panel. On a prototype, select your button, and there's going to be a different various options here. What I'm going to do is on this button when on the prototype panel, so make sure you're on the prototype panel on the right, select your main button, the default main button, and on all four sides of this button, you can see a plus icon coming up when you hover over it. So let's say I'm hovering at the bottom, there's this plus icon. Hovering on the right, there's this plus icon. Select one of those, doesn't matter which one, click on it and drag to the other button. Okay, so click and drag to this, hold and drag. And when you hold and drag, this thing pops up. So it says on click, change to this variant instantly. So we want something like this. Instead of on click, let's make it while hovering, change to this variant. So this is what we want. So whenever you hover on this, it will change to this variant. So that's how component variants can be useful right now. We have a second variant of this button, and when we hover on the first variant, it becomes the second variant. So since we've used this default variant in our design, when we hover on this, it should change into this. So let's try it out and see if it works. So how do we try it out? Select your profile page, like the frame that we had on this top, the text. Select that and press this play button. So this play button will show you, will preview or present the design that you've made, and you can try out whether this interaction, this hover interaction works. So click on play and it'll load. It takes a while. And this is our design. And when I hover on the follow, it becomes a lighter color that we made just now. You could also make it a click interaction instead of hover interaction. So when you're on the prototype tab, you can select that interaction that we had. And instead of while hovering, it can be on click. It becomes followed. And then if you click on the follow, it should go back to follow. So you can make that interaction also. So from this plus button to this, drag and hold, you hold and drag to the previous one. And on click of this, it becomes the default variant. So I click this followed, click it back, becomes follow again. So that's another interaction you can have. Okay, so I'm going to move this below because it changes this. So yeah, better. Okay. So that's how we can use component variants. And it's especially used when variants are very similar to each other and there's only slight differences. Okay. So the next thing is component properties. So let's say you have a button and you want certain properties of it to be maybe true or false, or have other items like text, variants, or other instance swaps, different properties that you can have. And one of the properties that I've frequently used is the Boolean property, which is to set whether certain things should be true or false about that component. And an example of this is a button where you want to show or hide an icon. So for example, let's have a button like this. And this is the master component, this is the instance component. And you can see under design, there's a has icon property, and I can turn it off or on, and the icon will be hidden or shown. So let's try to do something like this now. Okay, so let's go back. So this is what we were creating, and this is our follow button component that we just created right now. Let's add an icon into it. So I'm going to create a follow icon. Okay, import this into my design. Yes, and I'm going to add this icon inside my follow button. Okay, I'm going to make it smaller, constrain it, and then make it smaller. It's here. Okay, I'll make it white so that it follows the same color. I think the spacing should be lesser, so I'll decrease it here. Okay, 4 pixel, and that is our follow button with an icon. Okay, maybe we should go into the followed instead of the follow because it shows a tick. Okay, we have a button with an icon and some text. Now, let's say you want to change whether the icon is shown or not shown. So we can add a property for it. So that can be done on the right side. There's this layer option, and inside layer, there's this button. It says create Boolean property. So we want a Boolean property now. I'm going to create this, add this button and say has icon for the name of the property, and it's going to be true. So has icon, and it's true. And you can see that it has an icon when it's like this. So when I use this button somewhere else, okay, I copied it, clicked outside, pasted here. This is an instance component. I can select whether it has an icon or doesn't have an icon. So I can do the same thing again for our master component. Have an icon here on any side. Okay. And inside our button, we want this icon to be shown or hidden based on a Boolean property. So to add it to a Boolean property, to show or hide it using Boolean property, go inside layer, and you can see there's already a has icon. So this button, if I use it here, I can show or hide again. So let me try it with an icon with a button that doesn't already have it. Okay, I think I have to create a one. There's this one, create a component, and then use this button, this icon inside of it. Okay, it's gonna be black now, and I can show or hide this icon using layer, this one, as icon true, and now instances of it are going to be shown or hidden. So you can do it in all types of components, however you want to show or hide, or there's other things also you can explore using component properties. Okay, so these are just the instructions. And the next thing is the assets panel. So we work with this, and I'm going to turn off the icon for this. Okay, and we have this with the layers panel on the left. On the left, there's another tab, which is the assets panel. So on assets, all of the components that I've created over here are available here. So this component is maybe one of this button is here. So you can have all of these these components. Instead of copying and pasting from here, all you can do is just drag it from here and add into your design. So that's another way you can have components in your design. So these are all the local components I made. You can also use libraries and get components from external libraries that we'll share with you later. Okay. Next is variables. So variables are for storing reusable values, and these are values that can be applied to design components. So you can do that using this local variables. So you can set some variables here. For example, I've already set these colors to be used when it's light mode and these colors to be used when it's in dark mode. So that's one example where variables are useful. So, but it says use light mode, it will be the lighter colors. When it says use dark mode, it will be the dark colors. So this is a feature that is limited for the education or paid plan. So if you have that, you can try this out. I will show a demonstration of this later. So now let's do our prototyping.